Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to Winterwolf's Den. Winterwolf here, unfortunately flying solo for the finale of Andor. And no, it's not because he backed out or we came to blows during the holiday or anything like that. That'd be absurd. King Z can't be with us today. The on-the-road action of his contract job took him out of the game, unfortunately. So it's going to be Winterwolf flying solo to wrap this project up. Hopefully we can get together soon and give kind of a total series overview for Andor. We appreciate everybody that's been along for the ride, watching our long-form analysis of the 12-episode run of Andor on Disney+. We do appreciate that from the bottom of our hearts, guys. We do. If you want to drop us likes, subs, follows, wherever you might find Winterwolf's Den or King Z Productions on your social medias and interwebs, we would appreciate that. So without any further ado, I'm going to run through Andor episode 12, Rick's Road, on my own, give some basic thoughts and breakdowns, and I do have a special message from King Z, who did have a couple minutes to throw together a spot for you, which I'm going to put in here.
Hey everybody, King Z here. I want to say that I'm sorry for not being able to do the last episode with Winterwolf, but my schedule has become hectic with peak because people keep ordering a lot of packages. But I will be back after the new year. I'm going to leave the last episode's heavy lifting over to Winterwolf. He's going to drop you a great review. We are kind of in lockstep in what we think about this episode. And then I'll be back. Hopefully I'll get some time off or some downtime where I can record an episode where we will run through the whole series and give our predictions for the next season. Again, have a happy holidays. Thank you for viewing. Drop a like and a subscribe. Hit that bell for notifications so you never miss a new upload. And I'll see you in the new year.
All right. Thank you, King Z, for showing up. Andor, episode 12, Rick's Road. I'm not going to give you too much of the synopsis off any of the Wikipedias or other summation sites here, because this is basically it. This is the end of the line for season 1. The pieces are all on the board. Everybody's where they need to be, and shit is about to pop off if you haven't been watching. Basically, Andor is on his way home, having been sprung from the prison. He found out the hard way at the end of the previous episode that Maarva has passed. So he's going to be heading home against the odds to see if he can make her final funeral arrangements there. Bix is still in custody. Karn is on his way to Ferrix because he knows Andor is going back, because Sergeant Musk, or whatever his name was, called him up with a rando tip. Deirdre Meero is also on her way to Ferrix because she wants to oversee Andor's capture personally, believing him to be the only reliable link that they have to the mysterious Axis figure, who we all know as Luthen Rael anyway. And we get to see the pseudo aftermath of Rael and Saw Gerrera's decision to not intervene and let the Krieger airstrike on the Imperial site on Spellhouse go down. So there's a lot that's going to go on here. They do get a lot of stuff done in about, just sub of an hour-long episode. And it's a really good wrap-up, I thought. Total impressions all around, or first impressions all around. Great episode. It had an unexpected emotional punch, which I really appreciated. I thought it was kind of lacking as pertains to this particular character in the episodes coming up in the last couple episodes. It was a singular point of contention that I had with the show when King Z and I were kind of talking about it in our last show. So this character got through doing this one, which I thought was good. Once again, we have absolute standout mentions of acting by the staff here. The actress playing Deirdre Meero turns out an excellent performance that comes through at the end of the show. And when I get to that scene, I'll talk a little bit more about that. But I've said from the beginning, she's probably one of my favorite characters on the show. She is an excellent addition to the cast of Star Wars villains, particularly Disney Star Wars villains. She is terrifying. She's cynically ruthless, effective, intelligent, cold-blooded, cunning, and there's a thesaurus full of adjectives you could use to describe this woman in her relentless pursuit of her job. And I thought it was great. We get to see the ISB here kind of do their thing. We get to see stormtroopers here kind of get back to being terrifying a little bit. They're not punchlines here at all in this particular part of Star Wars world, which I think is really cool, because it's been a while since we've got to see that. We get to see people rising up for what they believe in, which is really good. There's some pretty good writing here. We get to see a little bit of that come into play at a couple of pivotal points where we get voiceovers from Nemec, the character you might remember. He was the young author / freedom fighter that was on Luth and Rail's Aldani heist crew, the young guy. So it was cool to have like throwbacks to somebody that wasn't with us anymore at this point of the show, which is kind of cool. We get to see a little bit more development of what's going on with Mon Mothma's family and her financial status, running money for the growing rebellion. But we're going to get into it. So the show opens up. It's got there's several scenes in the show that just they come and go without any kind of dialogue, but there's a lot going on as it moves clip by clip. So I'm just going to kind of talk over the running line here. The first scene opens up and we kind of get some somber music, and there's a young person who we can't see right away working on what looks like, any kind of like, chip set. He's kind of soldering something. We can't really see what's being made yet, but the music and the tone is right off the bat nice and ominous, so we know nothing good's coming. We fast forward a little bit from there and we get an Imperial shuttle landing. It's landing on a pad in a very darkened, industrialized area, industrialized starport kind of area on Ferrix. Reminded me of older Star Wars Battlefront games, which I thought was really cool. So I appreciated the imagery of that coming in, definitely. And we see it's Meero getting off the shuttle there. She's being flanked by a couple of death troopers. She ain't fucking around. These guys are here to run and gun, and they're going to lay the smackdown on some folks. If anybody steps to her, we can see that. So actually, she's heading into Ferrix to the hotel, kind of the ISB command center, where we get our look at Bix, who's now kind of shivering on a bed on the floor, barefoot, wrapped in a blanket over her shoulders. She's under 24-hour watch in the surveillance system in her cell, and she's looking pretty beat. And I kind of like it because it's showing, as far as a fantasy show can give you, like the expression on her face and how they've done, her makeup and her hair and everything else like that. You get that this woman's been through some shit. It's been like, how many weeks since they've held her captive? Because you gotta remember, Andor did a prison sentence that lasted at least 4 to 6 weeks before the escape from Narkina 5. So she's been in custody a hot minute, and she's not looking good. She's definitely not going to John Wick her way out of anything here, and that's something I appreciate about the show, is they put people in situations that are fantastical as far as the genre goes, but then they have them react in really authentic, legitimate, and kind of valid and semi-predictable ways. Where this was a woman who kind of just, she owned a shop on like a backwater planet. She's not a retired, secret agent. She's not a former, like Republic shock trooper like Cara Dune. So we know she's not going to hard muscle her way out of a battened down military facility. And it's cool just to see the realistic implications of people being who they are, relying on what skills or lack thereof that they have to manage these kind of situations. So that's cool. The scene as it rolls through is basically Meero checking in. She's met by the local commander who asks her, you're just in time for dinner. And she's like, yeah, no, past that, we're going to get changed and head out. She wants to take a look around. And she continues to do intelligent things here. When he offers her like the full escort, for security detail to go out and around, she's like, no, Corv can take me. We'll go plain clothes and keep it nice and quiet. So she's smart. She's maintaining a low profile. And I think it's just one more piece to this character that I enjoy, where she's always making the smart play. And we get to see the implication of that come later also, when she doesn't make the smart play, in my opinion. And we get to see an outcome to a bad decision that she makes. And after that, we jet right back to the young man working on the mechanical device, and we get a better look this time, and we see that it's the son of the guy the guy that the Imperials took into custody right before they took Bix in, the first guy that we saw get torches. He's putting something together, and just the tone and the shot and the music let you know he's probably making something that goes boom. So you're going to be on the lookout for that. That has major implications later at the end of the episode, which is nice. Next scene here, it's the other gentleman that worked in that shop with the guy that we just said was taken into custody. He's waiting on Brasso. He's got a message to pass along, and he basically just lets Brasso know that Andor called in on the old comlink system, the old radio tower that they had hidden up in the stacks, and he says Andor's coming, and yes, Andor does know that Maarva has passed. But really, that's it, because they didn't know, the conversation wasn't that long. And they kind of just, they fuck off, and Brasso tells them, let's keep that between us. But Local scumbag, apparently Nurchi, overheard the conversation, and that ties us into the next little bit that comes up. Nurchi, if you don't remember, is the guy that one of the guys on Ferrix that Andor owed money to. It was the African gentleman with the that brought like the giant thug-like enforcer comic relief character along with him. Not a major player in the early episodes, but he does have a major part in the episode here. Next scene, we get to see Korv and Meero kind of walking around. She's got the hood up. He's plain clothes. She's plain clothes. They're just kind of taking it in. But we see that they've themselves picked up a little tale of their own. And Cinta, Vel's wife and, part of Rael's team, is kind of pursuing them and seeing what they're up to. So she's still on the job there. We're back into the workshop, and the kid's definitely putting together something that resembles an IED or, a welded together set of pipe bombs, explosive kind of device, things like that. Next scene up, Nurchi is talking to Fan. That's the guy that was talking to Brasso about what's going on with Maarva's funeral, and it's messed up, and I don't know how Andor would react. I don't know what I'd do. And basically, he's pretty slick. He's playing the whole thing off like, oh man, I don't know what I'd do. Saying, I don't know, what would you do? Oh man, I can't imagine Cassian's not going to come back. And Fan's over here trying to keep it together, trying not to let any information out. Nurchi's being super generous. He's like, hey bro, you want another drink? And Fan's like, yeah, sure, no problem. And he goes up and he goes and gets him the other drink, and he's getting him pretty loosey-goosey with the info. And he finally makes one remark that basically confirms Andor's on his way back. And Nurchi plays him a little bit, and he's like, no. If you know something, you keep that shit to yourself. I don't need to know. And they kind of go on from there. But as Nurchi walks away from Fan and goes to the bar to get the next drink, he gets the actor does this little, it's not even a half smile, it's kind of like a quarter smile, mostly like with his eyes almost, to let you know that he's kind of scumming on the take, and it's going to be a bad play that comes out of this for sure, for the good guys. Let me bump this right along here. Next scene up is I think it's the final touches on the explosive device. He's attaching all the leads to the electrical and things like that. It's nothing major there. Next scene up, Mon Mothma is waiting in her limo with her chauffeur, sketchy driver guy that she suspects is an ISB spy. We hear kind of some bumping club music on the outside. She kind of loosens the coat up a little bit because, she's obviously uncomfortable where she is. And the door opens, and who gets in but douchebag husband Perrin. This guy might be the second most annoying character on the show. Have not enjoyed him all that much. I mean, he is who he's supposed to be. People like this in real life annoy the hell out of me. So when I see them on, in shows and things like that, I'm like, you don't get any leeway from Winter Wolf just because you're fake. I don't know. I get it. I don't get it. So she has a gripe to go over with him. She accuses him of gambling. She's heard rumors that I guess he's kind of in recovery from gambling. He's not supposed to do it. It's frowned upon on Coruscant, I guess. And she basically kind of dresses him down a bit about, how you promised me you wouldn't do it, and you're kind of a scumbag and this and that. You can't do that. You're going to put me in a position here. And he of course denies it. And there might be something to it, because the scene as it wraps up kind of has him in a spot where he goes, where would I have gotten the money to do that? And then she's like, yeah, that's kind of a question I'm afraid of too. In this scene, we also learn that the limo driver is kind of a scumbag. We don't know if he's a spy yet, but when she asks for privacy, he puts up the dampening field and the glass and everything. But then when they're getting heated in the backseat, he flips another switch and the comms come back on, so he's listening in to the private conversation that they were talking about. So, put a pin in him for later. There's definitely more coming out of that. That'll probably have implications for season 2. And that's something else that I wish King Z was here for. We're going to talk to him a little bit more, in the weeks ahead and see. Maybe hopefully get to do a wrap-up video. But I think that this show, I've heard, was initially started with an eight episodes planned for season 1, got a really early green light for episode 2, and then the powers that be at Lucasfilms, Kathleen Kennedy, in her infinite creative wisdom, had them stretch this to 12 episodes. So, take that with a grain of salt. That's just rumors that are out there. But I think that they probably, the reason they got a second season green light early was probably because they were able to really convince said, create powers that be, that they had kind of a minimum two season story planned. Because the more I watch these episodes here, and we see some of the kind of some of the plot lines that kind of come up and then they're not mentioned again, or threads that are open really late in the game, like the gambling thing that comes up here, and the issues with Mon Mothma kind of getting in bed, politically, so to speak, with, the organized crime guy that might help her bury the money a little bit. Like, none of that gets resolved by the end of this episode, so I think they're going fairly long form, kind of like how something like Game of Thrones would go, where we're introducing characters that are going to take up A and B plots going forward next season. So it's not going to look like they're going to start from scratch. Like, there's very much going to be a really good continuation of these things as they go forward. The interesting one to see if they follow up on will be, does Andor resume the search for his missing, assumed dead and gone sister? Because after that episode, what was it, 2, 3? It was long enough ago that I don't remember. They never touch on that plot again outside of during Maarva's last conversation with Andor, where she basically implores him to give up the search. Like, let it go, move on with your life. You've had a good life. It's been like 20 years, 30 years, however old he's supposed to be. Like, just forget it and go. So I don't know if they'll be revisiting that plot, but they do set up a bunch of other things that they definitely still get to address going forward, which is kind of cool. The next thing up on the docket here is Cinta walks back into her apartment and la-di-da, Vel's there just kind of hanging out. They kind of talk about the goings-on on Ferrix. Cinta lets her know that the Imperial sent down, a supervisor, meaning Meero, and that something big's going to happen, and it probably means that they know Andor's coming. And throughout the scene, you can just tell by their posture and whatnot, Cinta's still very much on task with like the mission, and Vel's wondering what happened to her wife. Like their body language it's separate, it's distant. There's not a lot of affection ever between these two that we can see. And I think Vel is ultimately realizing that she's not as into the rebellion as Cinta is, and Cinta's probably not as into their relationship, marriage, whatever they have, as maybe she is. And she basically has to not beg her, but she basically has to state flat out, get away from the window, I'm here, you need to stop surveilling Maarva's apartment for 5 seconds and talk to me, kind of thing. And when they wrap the scene, Cinta just has this blank expression, she's not she's angry and looking through Vel, but she's just not, there's the relationship they had before the show started is just not, it's not there anymore. The love is gone, kind of thing, which is kind of sad. You can see it in Vel. Vel sells the scene really well for that. Next up, Andor back on Ferrix. My man's back on them streets. He's moving kind of, in shadow. It's nighttime, but he's definitely moving in shadows. He's avoiding Imperials, maintaining a low profile. And here's where we get our first emotional gut punch of the show, and Diego Luna turns on the emotes a little bit and gets a little teary. He's stopping on Rick's Road, which on Ferrix is where, when you die, they do a cremation ceremony, and they take your ashes and they kind of distill it into the mix they use to make their bricks, and then they make a brick. They carve your name into it, and then you get added to a memorial wall. So you get rebuilt after you pass into the structures of Ferrix itself. So you're never really gone, which I thought was a really nice little cool touch to the world building on the show. I like those kind of small details. It's in this show, it's not really, it becomes a larger detail because what they do with Maarva's funeral kind of kicks off what ends up being probably the major spark to the rebellion on Ferrix. I think we'll see that as it plays out later on, after the aftermath goes down. But it's cool. He visits Clem Andor's funeral stone. He kind of touches it. It kicks off a bit of a flashback, so we get to see the Clem character come back. And I like this actor. I hope we get more flashbacks of him in season 2 where Andor reflects back. And he's basically, it's a really cool scene that has a subtext and it's nuanced and it has great meaning to it. They're in their family home and they're cleaning up salvaged kind of junk parts. And he's teaching him a basic skill, but he's also explaining to him how, other people don't see opportunity the way we see it. They're always looking up and away and into the clouds and into the future and things like that. And where you need to look is down beneath the rust, where you can see what's still possible with what you have. If you see opportunity and you're willing to work at it and things like that. And he's basically taken this, it's like a mechanical part of some sort, and he's basically dipping it in an acid bath. And when he takes it out, it's sterling silver and sparkling and whatnot. And his reasoning there is, we've got like 70 of these laying around and they go for like 500 credits each. Like, we're sitting on a pile of cash if we're willing to do the work and be smart about it. And the whole time they're doing it, once again, I know King Z, if he was here, he'd point this out. Dude, the score is just like slamming on heartstrings and really jabbing it home that like this was a good man that got screwed. The Empire hung this man for trying to stop a fight in the streets and people throwing stones at passing Imperials. And the character met such like a tragic end, and it hurts, and Luna sells it here for real. Like when they cut back out to him, he's not outright sobbing or anything like that, but he's got this bleary look, and he misses his old man, he misses his dad. And I think that resonates with a lot of us, that we don't know what we'd do without our dads. So big shout out to all the dads out there, man. We're better men because you guys were great. So it was just a good scene, and there was little, and the actor injected it with a little bit of humor too, where they wrap up the sad part of the subtext, and he goes, all right, we gotta get this cleaned up before Maarva gets home. She's gonna kill us if she sees us doing this in the house. It was nice. It was a human touch. It was good stuff, and those are the kind of things that I think are missing a lot from current shows, and we need to get back to this. We need to get back to this kind of writing. It's sad, and this will be my point of the show, where I say I think this show is getting the Solo a Star Wars story kind of treatment. That movie got dunked on after TLJ because people absolutely hated that, despite what the media that's now coming around is finally openly admitting that, maybe it wasn't as great as we initially demanded you people believe. So now that the gaslighting's kind of over, we get to see the truth out of these folks. I think Andor is suffering a very similar fate, but like the Critical Drinker said in his video the other day, great spot, great video. This is what Disney Star Wars deserves. They put us in a position after watching two absolute dog shit shows like Book of Boba Fett and Kenobi, which is the king of piles of dog shit right now on TV. We have a good show. It might not be everybody's cup of tea in terms of pacing, but nobody could ever state and be intellectually honest that it's a bad show. It's technically very sound. It's very well written. The performances have been great. The villains are layered. The set designs are immaculately done. Costuming and orchestral scoring, things like that. This show is full of good stuff. And the criticism that it's not Star Wars because it doesn't have Jedi and lightsabers, or it doesn't have the Force, or it doesn't have enough Darth Vader or something, it's a faulty statement or a faulty belief to maintain. Because if you guys have ever walked through a bookstore, or a game store, or anything like that, the Star Wars universe is bigger than the Skywalkers. And yes, they are a core and central and necessary part. And yes, we were absolutely right to hate what they did to Luke, and hate how they undermined, the Anakin redemption story, and hate that Rey just got to take the name Skywalker and la-di-da, I defeated the Emperor. Yeah, no, fuck you. No. But the world is much bigger. And there are things out there like, Tales from the Cantina. There are things out there like Rogue Squadron. There are things out there like the Republic Commando series of books. There's like 90 some odd novels plus. I mean, there's a lot more to Star Wars than Tatooine, and a little boy that just wanted to join the academy and fight the rebellion. There's more to it. This show is the more to it. So to outright put it off as not good because it doesn't have laser swords, and I hated when they called him that, and that Luke called the lightsaber, I'm still not over it. I'm not over it from TLJ. It's been like 5 years, but I'm over it now. And it's too bad that people aren't giving the show a crack. Hopefully, once it's on Hulu for a couple episodes, people come around and binge it over here on Disney Plus. I'm not sure, but to get back on track after my segue and sidebar. Right, so Andor's back on the move through the streets. He's basically hopping fences until he ends up back in Pegla's scrapyard, where again the alien ugly mutant dogs almost eat him. Pegla shows up. They kind of have a quick chat. It's not the quickest. Pegla says, I'm just kind of hanging here until we can sell the property. And that's when Andor asks, where's Bix? Because this is kind of her. It's an offshoot of what she owns, I guess. And he doesn't answer, but we know that he's told Andor for sure now that they still have her up there at the hotel. So she's still in custody. And then it kind of flips back over to her. She's shivering and not looking good at all. It cuts back out to Luth and Rael on the outskirts of town. And as this is all going on here, this is where we get the Nemec voiceover, which is really cool. There's a number of excellent, powerful lines here about, keeping hope and faith and rising for the cause. And how even, there's a great line right here, even the smallest act of insurrection pushes our lines forward. Another good one there. And it's ominous and it's foreboding. There's a thunderstorm going on. We get shifts back and forth between Bix in the jail cell, Andor in one of the ships that he borrowed from Pegla, Luth and Rael on the outskirts of town, and kind of every time the frame kind of flips, what Nemec is saying is something that is pertinent to the particular character on screen. Like it's something they're either feeling or something that they have to do, which is kind of cool that they threaded it together. Another great line that just passed in the scene as I'm rewatching it here said, tyranny requires constant effort, which I thought was a great line there. Yeah, one single thing will break the siege, and that's when freedom wins the day. And you have to try, you can't give up. It's good. It's a nice little speech. When you guys get to this episode, if you've been along for the whole ride, I think you'll enjoy it. All right, so moving right along here. Data Meero's taking kind of a tactical breakdown of the surroundings. They're looking at a holo map. Her officers are letting them know that, we've loosened security, but we've put snipers here and here. They asked for a funeral for Maarva's procession at a certain time. We walked it back a couple of hours to when it would be better for us, kind of thing. She makes it very clear to these guys that she needs Andor taken alive in order to make the Axis connection. So she basically puts off the order for snipers and she says, it's containment only. They kind of take a look outside at the street. We're seeing, what it would look like. Again, very sinister, very somber music. We got stormtroopers running them streets on one of their kind of like their light hover vehicles that has like the mounted cannon on it. Pretty cool. We see Vel walking by plain clothes. She's just taking it in also, kind of scouting the spot out. These guys got to remember, Vel and Cinta are here on Luthen's orders to basically be able to intercept Andor and kill him if necessary. Like, they're not here to back him up. So you got two factions of folks that are trying to capture or kill this guy when he comes back on world. So we know they're in circulation, which is cool. All right, next up, we have Blevins back. And he's kind of got an off-screen voice. He's talking to somebody. We can't see who it is. We hear his voice. And then we realize that it's the driver of Mon Mothma. He's basically he's at least an ISB informant. He's still dressed as the limo driver. So we're not sure he's an officer undercover or double agent or whichever, but he's definitely letting him know that they're talking about gambling and there's possible debt issues and borrowing issues. And Blevin kind of bounces it back and forth like you'd expect an intelligence operative to do. He said, that might make it easy for us to lean on the family if there's some financial pressures. And when he kind of thinks about the question of, that's a lot of money, it would explain their odd banking moves. He unfortunately falls more onto the line of thinking that it has to do with the gambling and not that it could be anything but that. So he's kind of locked into that line of thinking and not thinking that maybe there's more involvement from her leaning into the rebel cause, getting money over to them. And I think that's going to be a point of contention in season 2, where Meero is going to point out that this jackass kind of overlooked that when, in the past when he should have been talking about it and pursuing it as a lead. And that might be the thing that gets Blevin taken out. That could be kind of cool. So their meeting is interrupted, and when another Imperial comes in and says, the Krieger raid on Spellhouse went down. It was a massacre. They're still counting the bodies. The whole thing went off as expected. The trap was perfect. We greased him pretty good. I can't remember the character's name, but he's the ISB officer who's also working for Luth and Rael. He starts talking with Blevin and a couple of the others as Blevin's walking in, and Blevin's asking, what about Meero? What does she have to say? And the ISB double agent guy is kind of like, she called in, and Patagar's been talking her down because she's kind of pissed. And Partagaz, sorry, the older guy, Qyburn from Game of Thrones. Basically, Meero's pissed that they didn't take anybody alive from the Krieger raid because, again, she's smart. She knows that, dead people can't talk. They can't give up info. She wanted somebody questioned. And I think this is the first time Partagaz kind of makes a mistake. He doesn't shut her down. He's not rude. He's not condescending. So, again, this isn't the the strong, independent women who don't need no man, fighting in a patriarchal world that won't let her rise the ladder, rise the ranks, whatever. He's made a counterpoint to what she said was the most important thing, where she wanted more intel to push the cause forward. He reminds her that today was about wiping the taste of the Aldani raid from the Emperor's mouth, because as we know, when the raid went off and the Empire lost 80 million credits or whatever it was, the Emperor's obviously pissed about this, and that's when they did the crackdown with the public sentencing thing, and cracking down all across the galaxy at various points. So Partagaz has a different want than what Meero wants, even though they're both kind of interrelated. It's nice to see this level of complexity. Like, people can make mistakes and have different opinions, and it not be because the one thing is a personal attack on the other person because of the color of their skin, or who they prefer to have their fun bits touched by. So it's nice to see just good writing come back. We flip back out. Meero has to kind of settle herself after that. She terminates the call with Partagaz, kind of takes a deep breath and kind of woosahs her way back to sanity, which was nice. Next scene here is Luthen Rael getting off the Fondor. He hits his street bike. He's gonna do a little zippity-doo into the city. We're back in Ferrix, and Corv, the ISB guy who's kind of been flirting with Cinta in and out of the coffee shop, is on his observation post here. And he notices that Brasso isn't the one leaving Maarva's home. It's another guy that looks like him. He says, we've been played, where is he? So he knows something's amiss. We get Andor he's in a subtunnel somewhere. It's like he gets his quick meeting, his quick reunion with Brasso, which is kind of cool. Brasso brings him up to speed, which is nice. There's another emotional beat here where Andor's basically making his apologies, and kind of going through his grief about not having been there when Maarva passed, where he's like, I tried to get back, I couldn't, and this and that. And Maarva made Brasso remember a specific, thing that a message that she wanted him to pass along to Andor if and when he came back. So again, the music hits again. It gets all somber. It's so gut-wrenchingly sad to see what happened here. And Brasso basically says to him, he says, she knew you'd say all this, and this is what she wanted me to say. And he kind of runs through her last words. And he says, you'll be an unstoppable force for good, the minute that you realize that you're all you need is inside, that kind of speech. But the best line here from the old lady, from the mom, I love him more than anything he could ever do wrong. Now, I'm getting choked up just thinking about that, because if that's not the heart and soul of a family unit, that just, you always circle your wagons around your people, you never turn your back on family ever. And it's just nice to see that kind of stuff. I know that's kind of like the Winterwolves catchphrase in these shows. And whenever the family stuff comes up, because it's been so shittily lacking in so many things, where kids are awful to their parents and parents are awful to their kids, and I'm glad this kind of storytelling is back in a Star Wars show where it actually counts for something. It's good stuff. Yeah, we get Karn and Mosk. They're showing up. They're they're going to have their role to play. Basically, from here, it's basically that Andor's going to make the run and try and bail out Bix. He's kind of taking an observation point over where the funeral route's going to be, so he can figure out guard placement. We see Nurchi observing the Imperials. We know he's going to make his play. Next scene's a good one. We get Luthen Rael and Vel kind of meeting in public. They're very distant, but they're talking to each other. Vel lets him know it's a dangerous spot that they're in. He lets her know that, this is good. The Imperials are hot. We'll let them do the work for us. We just need to make sure he's here. And they kind of exchange little bits of information there, which is kind of good. Fast forwarding, we get some stuff with the Imperials. More with Luthen Rael and Vel. We get the I don't know what he is. I guess he's a blacksmith, ringing the gong with the hammer and the anvil up in the tower, which kind of lets you know that the funeral is starting. This is where it gets good. The proceeding is this really solemn march where a band leads the Daughters of Ferrix, and Brasso is kind of carrying Maarva's funeral stone. It's like a giant cinder block thing with the size of like a triple thick laptop kind of thing. but the music, it carries so well in the scene. And like we get everybody moving into position, like Karn and Mosk moving into their spot. Andor's doing a little bit of Overwatch, and all the while they're marching to like this. It's like a drum-led kind of band with, you know, brass instruments, bagpipe kind of sound and things. And a crowd is just absolutely swelling behind them. And earlier, one of the Imperials said, you know, we granted them a permit for 30. There's 30 people in this assembly in less than, like, I don't know, 10 steps. So they blew that. But then also joining the crowd is the young technician who was making the explosive device. And he's got a satchel with him. So we know some shit's about to pop off with that. Also in the procession, you know, Vel and Cinta are kind of along. ISB officer Corv is along. That's the guy that was escorting Meero earlier, but he's kind of like blended in, and Cinta has him like dead in her sights, you know, keeping an eye on things there. The Imperials are starting to freak a little bit, where like their sergeant on the ground kind of character is calling for, like, you know, total show of support. Everybody from inside, everybody out front, you know, heavy weapons up front. They're starting to throw up barricades and shit like that around the hotels, like their little display of force. But the march is going on. It's peaceful. You know, the Daughters of Ferrix are leading. Andor's kind of got him kind of launched and not launched. He's got him on Overwatch, so he sees what's going on here. I'll skip ahead a little bit more. Andor catches a glimpse of Luth and Rael, which is kind of cool. He's got him on his little spotter scope, so he knows Rael's there, which can only mean one thing: that he's brought back people to kind of, you know, take out the loose end and tie him off. So that adds a little bit of a variable to Andor's situation there. Nurchi finds Corv in the crowd, and this is where he kind of comes clean that he's probably just an informant. I don't think he's ISB because he's from Ferrix. But his line is, you know, I want twice as much as I said before, and a ride out when it's over. And then him and Corv go through this dance of like a fake arrest that gets Nurchi taken into the building, so people won't see him just like walking in, like, you know, all buddy like he's the rat, which is kind of cool. So the funeral stops in front of the hotel. You know, people are kind of like lining up. And this is where the ISB forces come out with riot shields and set up a barricade that's it's not like it's blocking their way, because like the wall I think that they could put Maarva's funeral stone on isn't past them. It's like it's within distance, but Brasso's moving very slowly forward, and Bix can hear the music, you know, through the grate in the wall in her prison cell. She kind of starts tapping along weakly to it, which is a really nifty little character beat to have her do. Just to show that she's not dead yet. You know, there's still a little bit of spirit in her. Karn spots Meero in the crowd. Mosk holds him back. EMO B2 or B2 EMO, the red droid that nobody likes because he's broken. It's always needing to be on the charge strip. He kind of rolls forward and stands next to Brasso. And then the crowd starts moving again. The tempo picks up a little bit with the music, and they are full on marching towards the Imperial Foundation. This is I'm getting a little chills just rewatching it. Like, it's a very sweeping shot where like it comes in and you just see this sea of people, and there's people all around buildings that they're all up in balconies. They're on their eyes are all dead set in the direction of the ISB. The Death Troopers and Meero have rolled up to Maarva's apartment thinking Andor is going to be there. And not the apartment, the stacks. They think they have him caught there, but nope, they went to the wrong spot. Kind of B2's pulling up to his spot because this is where it gets good. Andor's kind of breached the hotel. He's moving in for Bix. The Imperials have kind of stopped the progress here. That was a good part too. Just gonna try and chip it along. Andor's moving through the kitchen. He decides not to shoot somebody he knows, which is good, because why would you shoot a guy working in the hotel at the kitchen? But this is where it gets good. So B2 does this like skyward hollow projection of Maarva. And this is where it caught me off guard, because I didn't think we were going to get like the hero scene for this character. And I thought that she had earned it, and they wrote her well enough to earn it. So they have her on like the giant hollow projection. She's probably like, you know, 2 stories tall. And she lays down kind of like the brief biography of, you know, she's honored to be part of the Stone. She grew up here. She was born here. And, you know, it's like it's like a nice little self-eulogy for a couple of seconds. But as it goes on, it turns revolutionary, and she starts calling out the Empire for their bullshit. and letting people know that like it's time. We ignored them and they grew, and we ignored them and they grew, but now it's time, and we can't ignore them anymore because they always want more, and then they start taking more. That we've turned away from the truth, and now that it's a darkness. What you say? There's a darkness reaching like rust, and and it's infecting everything around us. Talking about the Empire, and the actress is like, it's amazing. There's just even through like a holographic projection, she's selling it with the facial expressions. It's that the Empire's here to stay. It's not just visiting, they're not leaving, and we have to do something. It's a disease that lives in darkness, and it's never more alive than when we sleep. It's good. I mean, it might be a little heavy-handed and Shakespearean, but I'm here for all of that. That's what gets me going in fiction. Like I'm a big speech guy for the good guys in a sports movie, or if it's King Theoden on the Pelennor field. So you could sign me up for all of that. I had no problem with that shit, because at least that hits you here in a meaningful way that isn't superficial and unearned. Like these characters, when they throw down their rally to war kind of speeches, it's because they've been through some shit, and you were there when they did it. So I'm with that. I'm with all of that. So she says we got to wake up and fight these bastards, fight the Empire. And this is finally where, the Imperial dickhead on the ground running things, he runs up to EMO droid B2, whatever his name is, and he throws his Nazi jacket over it, but he misses the hologram like an asshole. So the Maarva projection is still speaking and it's not blocked out, but then he fucks up. See, he grabs B2 and flips him over, and seconds later, Brasso's straight throwing elbows, kicks, hip tosses. Dude, he cracks a guy over the skull with Maarva's funeral brick, and he's this dude berserk through this screen. But it's a good scene, because this is how actions like this is how riots go down, and sadly in the States we saw this a couple years ago, just in terms of formation and tactics. So the Imperials don't start shooting right away. They put their riot shields down and hold a line, and people are running up to it and shoulder butting it and kicking it, and it hasn't escalated into like an open battlefield, not yet. The crowd's screaming. The Imperial guy that got cracked in the face, he's crawling back to the line. His guys are dragging him and pulling him back under, but the line holds. We get a quick switch to Andor. He's in the hotel. He's trying to do his thing to get up to Bix, but he hasn't made it up there yet. But this is where it really pops off. The kid that had built the bomb finally pulls what we see to be the bomb out of the satchel. It's a pretty big size device, but he done hucks it up and over the line of riot shields, and it absolutely dusts these guys from behind. He goes up and over, just absolutely levels them. And Nurchi, God bless him, is watching the riot out the window of the Imperial building. He just buys it in the explosion. It just bowls him over. We don't see him die here, but he's definitely dead. We see it a little bit later. And the bomb, when it goes off, rattles the Imperial hover vehicle that was nearby, or there's something that had a weapons cache on it, because a bunch of grenades hit the ground and then they start exploding. So the IED that the kid threw over the top sets off a chain reaction of all these other multiple explosions that just go nuts. So everybody hits the deck, Imperials, rioters, everybody. Karn's here. He hits the deck. He's trying to scramble around and see what the hell's going on. Everything's popping off, multiple explosions, and when the dust settles, Andor's scooping up Bix and telling him we gotta go. Vel's running across town towards the explosion because she wasn't near enough by, but she's obviously looking for Cinta. She's not giving a fuck about what's going on at this point, I'm guessing. The Imperials are screaming to hold the line and open fire, so the shooting starts here, and this is where it gets ugly when they call for the fire at will, because now they're just openly shooting people from their positions up top and in the streets, but people are still fighting. They're dragging out their own. Stormtroopers are, taking people into custody, and it's just like, it's bedlam, like it's mayhem in there. Brasso's wrecking dudes. The guy that had the conversation with Brasso earlier let him know that Andor was coming back. He unfortunately buys it in the blast. Brasso just runs this scene though. Like the big dude just moves through the crowd. He's just like pushing people to safety. He scoops up the kid that built the bomb and just basically big brothers him up and just like sets him down. He's like, we're going this way. So he's trying to evac his buddy's son. The Imperial guy is basically ordering people after him because somebody spotted him having thrown the bomb, I guess. A couple people are being trampled, but people are still straight jumping on stormtroopers, which is great. People are sticking up for themselves, and they've had enough, which is what happens. B2 is on the ground. He's he's just recording as he goes. Korv's trying to get away from the battle scene, but dude, Cinta stalking him like elite lady tigress apex predator. catches up with him. He's like, what are you doing here? And she just absolutely just gets him right in the gut. Absolutely shanks his ass rotten. So he's out. She's down. He's down. Pegla, I think that's Pegla pulling him. We can't tell with the dust. Pegla is pulling B2 EMO to safety. We get Andor involved in a shootout with Bix. He's broken her out of the cell. He's getting into it with the Death Troopers. That's where he sees Nurchi's dead, so he kind of knows that he got dimed out by some scumbag. We pause right there just because I skipped over one part. When we were talking earlier about characters behaving in ways that characters would behave, and I mentioned Bix, I'm going to mention her again here, because one of the cool things that they kind of wrote in, or maybe the actress did it on her own, just as like terms of developing her own character, when Andor is in the cell and he's like, hey, we gotta go, we can talk later, this and that. He's being real calm, trying to tell her we gotta go, but she's got this like shaking, shivering, trembling thing going on because it's like loud noises outside and chaos and who knows else what's going on out there. But when he says, we gotta go, she kind of does this. She's like, no, we can't. It'll make him mad. She's so broken in this scene because she's been in custody and tortured with that auditory playback of like the dying species that the ISB used to like torture their prisoners and shit. So she's busted, but she gets up and moves, which is nice. We get more Imperials kind of just running and gunning in the streets here. And this is where we get another great little bit of character development here. So Meero was on the ground, Daedra Meero, the Imperial, the ISB lieutenant, whatever she is, who's basically made all the right decisions so far through the show, and she's really developed and advanced the character well. This is where she fucks up. She breaks formation from like where her cluster of like guards are, draws her sidearm, and then starts attempting crowd control. She doesn't fire a shot before somebody hits her in the head with like a thrown rock or a bottle or something, and she goes down. And she starts scrambling for the gun, but like her hand gets trampled and the gun gets knocked away a couple of times. And it's not until a little bit later, after this shit's completely going off. This is a great little bit right here too. What the hell is he called? The blacksmith with the hammers and the anvils. He's up there banging away on the anvil gongs to like let everybody know to rally. And the Imperial officer running shit that got clocked in the head by the brick at the beginning of the riot sends stormtroopers up there, but this guy goes absolutely Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and he straight turbo kicks the stormtrooper in the chest off the tower. And this is where like the tide of this battle has turned. Like the people are having their way right now. We're back on Meero. She's straight combat crawling to the gun, but like a crowd of people fall on her. They're scooping her up. She's screaming. She's terrified. Her gun's being kicked all over the place. She's disarmed for all intents and purposes, but somebody picks it up. And that somebody gets that gun right in her ribs and is kind of walking her down an alley. And it's Karn. So basically, Cyril Karn, who is psycho and he's probably Norman Bates, flew all the way to quit his job, rob money from his mom, flew all the way to Ferrix to save the woman of his dreams, his infatuation, his muse, whatever she is to him. And he gets her into like a safe workshop off the alley where the crowd was. And she pulls I think she has a knife to his throat. I think it's really dark. But she's basically like, you saved me, how? And he goes, you were in trouble. And like she is this is good acting. We see a completely different character from her in this scene, where she was always together and collected and calm and in control of things, except in a couple of brief glimpses where she was angry, a call didn't go her way or something bad happened. But here she's wide-eyed, and now she's doing the shivering, trembling, terrified thing. Because she's not a bureaucrat, but she's an intelligence operative. She's not combat ready. She's not combat tested by anything we've seen. So much like Karn in the early episodes, she was super book smart and procedural and this and that. But when things get ugly on the ground, if you haven't been there before, it's not the easiest thing to stomach. So she's all like panting and trying to figure out what to do. And then when she finally sorts it out, she's like, I should probably say thank you. Because she's only now regaining like her faculties about what happened, which is kind of cool, because this is what makes this show great, are these little transitional beats of character where they do things that normal, regular people would do. Not everybody is John Wick. not everybody is Wonder Woman. Not everybody is Batman. Not everybody is, I don't know, Starbuck from New Battlestar Galactica. Like, sometimes there are just regular people that have jobs. And when they respond like regular people, it almost makes it more, it doesn't almost. It makes it more endearing to us, because we're like, fuck, that's what it would be like if I'm just some run-of-the-mill everyday, like if I'm an attorney or some shit, and all of a sudden I'm caught in the middle of a riot that I wasn't ready for. Like, she's not gonna double pistol blast her way out of Dodge and throw an elbow strike and then a head. No, she's gonna lose her gun because a random rock's gonna hit her in the head, and she's gonna drop her piece, and she's gonna get carried out. And that's what happens, and that's why this show is good, because this makes her no less terrifying of an ISB operative. She's still, when she gets back in her element, God, this bitch is gonna be out of control in season 2, terrifying. It's going to be ugly for the next person she captures. It's going to be ugly because she's going to take this shit personal, and it's going to be absolutely terrifying when she gets a hold of somebody for this. But again, there's a special, I usually special mention like extras, non-named characters, or characters without a lot of lines, as being the ones that kind of support this kind of gripping, emotional character work on the show. But in this episode, it's 100% her. Bix gets honorable mention. Diego Luna gets a little bit of honorable mention for the scene with Clem, because it was just a flashback and it wasn't long. But this right here, this shows depth in the Meero character, and also just the actress herself. Absolutely, she gets this message across that like this character is now in over her head and does not know what to do. And I dig that. I love when stuff like that happens. So she thanks Karn. Andor is walking down a dusty street away from kind of the crisis zone. It looks like they're on their way to safety. Luth and Rael's kind of taking a look around at things. He doesn't like what he sees. He's piecing out. Vel and Cinta are packing up their the apartment. Everything's got to go. Vel notices the blood on Cinta's hand, and she's like, "Oh, you're bleeding." And Cinta's like, "No, it's not mine." And then Vel knows, "All right, you probably shanked the ISB guy." And then she bounces. And then the rest of this, there's a couple. It's actually like a 2-minute cut up here. They're in Pegla's yard. They're taking a ship. The music's kind of tense. Bix is on board with Andor. Bix is on board with Andor. Andor's saying, "I have to go back out there. There's something I have to go do." And they're all trying to get him not to go, that he won't be back. And it's Bix, it's Brasso, it's the young guy that made the bomb, and it's the older lady. It was the older lady who was the daughter of Fex. I think her name is Jessie. I think the character name only came up once on the subtitle, so I apologize. So we have a couple of new characters we'll definitely be following in season 2. But Andor's jumping off right now. He's got unfinished business. He's going to look for Luth and Rael. We see the ship take off and his people get to safety, which is nice. B2 EMO is also on the ship. We know he made it out. We get a dialogue-less scene here of the Mothma family. It's the formal introduction of Mon Mothma and Perrin's daughter to the I don't remember. I think it's Dabo is the name. Basically the gangster guy with all the money. So he got what he wanted. They've introduced their daughter to his son. It's all very formal. And I'll point out something here on the artistic level because I just like the look of it. One of the things that I really like about this show is that the styles and the this is so queer eye for the straight guy right here. The styles and the fashions vary from place to place, planet to planet, and I love that because it makes everything feel, again, very authentic and legitimate. There's an obvious style with the Chandrilan people, with like the robes and like all their clothes are always like turquoise, gold, and copper. And we've got the issues with the hairstyles with the daughter with like the braids, things like that. Like, it makes it feel authentic. It's a reflection. It's a nifty reflection of our own world. Like if I leave Eastern United States right now and I fly to Turkey and then I fly to Japan and then I fly to somewhere in South America, how people dress beyond like, we all wear like, some kind of pants and shoes, like beyond these general, broad kind of categories of clothing, there's very distinctive things people wear. And yeah, certain things like sneakers or trainers and, blue jeans, hoodies, these are ubiquitous, but like there are varying cultural kind of styles and pieces that people use. And I like seeing that reflected instead of just some lazy, fake cyberpunk inspired future wearing everybody's in gray and Velcro bullshit. This feels authentic and lived in, so I like it. And then right after that, Luth and Rael's getting on board his ship. He thinks he's a stray G. He's going to make his getaway. He's giving orders to the ship's bot, or the AI, or the nav droid, or whatever it is, doesn't have a name. We're going to get out of here. We're going to do this and that. But the droid doesn't respond. And that's because when he turns around, Andor's on his ship. And they have a little bit of a standoff here. Andor's gun is basically in reach of, Luth and Rael. And he's, Andor's looking all like exhausted and beat, and he's basically like, kill me or take me with you. It's up to you. Like, I don't care. Like, I have nothing left. My people are safe. They'll be safer if I'm not with them. But after he hears, he heard Maarva's, eulogy, this is the committing moment to him. Is like his mother inspired him to take up the fight that she put off for too long, and it's now kind of on him to kind of take that up. So I thought that there was powerful stuff here, and there's not a lot of dialogue in the scene. It's not one of Luth and Rael's scenes where he kind of has like this monologue, not a Bond villain thing, but like where he has some powerful 45-second long speech that he gives to a character that needs to hear it, which was, I think it was better this way, where Andor just leaves it to him. Like, dude, just either put me down or take me with you, and let's do this shit. All right, so I just watched the cut scene because I did not know there was an end scene credit at the end of that episode, and thankfully King Z mentioned it to me when he gave me the call the other day and said he wouldn't be with us here today. So the end scene, the mid-credit scene at the end, pretty cool. It starts tight on a bunch of spider droids kind of assembling something, and it pulls back little by little, and you realize that's kind of like a big flattish kind of structure. And it isn't until it pulls medium amount back that you see it's kind of got like a concave kind of shape to it. But then when it pulls out all the way, it's kind of like the stinger sound is kind of rising a little bit, that you realize obviously it's kind of the blasting surface of the Death Star, and it's being assembled in kind of like a 3D model that's obviously going to collapse and then be inserted into the full globe of the Death Star, which is already built in an orbit wherever they built the Death Star. So that was pretty cool there. So Andor episode 12 overall, it gets the approval of Winter Wolf. It's a fitting and fun end to a show that wasn't the easiest thing to watch because of pacing in the first 3 episodes, but man, they hit everything going down the stretch. And I have to retract my criticisms from episode 11 when they didn't give Maarva like a hero moment. I guess sometimes you got to be a little bit more open-minded to what counts as a hero moment. The funeral eulogy here definitely counted as that because she inspired people, and that's always a worthwhile thing in fiction is when you can inspire real people, and then also people in your fictional world. So that was good. I did like the performances. I love the Imperials in this so much. The stormtroopers in this weren't buffoons. Like, I don't think they missed a whole lot of shots, which was terrifying kinda. So yeah, if I'm rating this episode, like I gotta come up. I think last week I went kind of just shy of 3. I think I had it in like the 2.8-ish section. For this episode, for sure, I'm gonna give it a full 4.75 out of 5. Just a couple of stupid nitpicks that really aren't even worth talking about, but I know they were there. So it's tough to get a perfect score, so I'll just say that. So 4.75 for sure. I hope people start watching this show when it's on. I hear it's coming to AB. Like the first episode is going to be on ABC at some point soon, and then the first few episodes are going to be on Hulu. So if you have Hulu tied into like your cell phone plan, you'll be able to check it out on that. Disney Plus just underwent a price hike. I just got the text the other day that said the shit's going up to like $12.99 a month or some shit, and I'm like, oh, you guys are lucky Willow's on here, so I gotta review that woke garbage because I'm not hearing good things about that. Which incidentally, Willow will be the next show that Winter Wolf's covering solo on the Winter Wolf's Den. King Z still unavailable, unfortunately, through the holidays, and just can't budget the time in right now while he's driving. So it's gonna be you and yours truly doing the Willow thing. I'm going to get to that hopefully this weekend. But, in the meantime, guys, let me know what you guys thought. Did you get on board the Andor train late in the game? Have you been with it the entire time? Do you have a favorite character? Did something just not work? Did the whole thing just not work? I don't know. I'm not trying to tell you how to fucking live. Do your thing. You live how you want, but give it a chance. I think that when you've been starved for good media as long as I think we've had with just some of these other shows, or when you need a little bit more than member berries or nostalgia or bright colors and car chases and explosions, this is a good show for that kind of thing. It's not House of the Dragon. It's not as good as that, though, because that hit on a much harder emotional level, almost episode to episode. And there was just a better... Like, anytime a plot twist happened or the story went in a direction that you might not have seen coming, it landed a little bit better. But Andor really fits in that vein. I think that this was the kind of show that it had potential to kind of get audiences, maybe not fully back on board, but it could have erased some of the tarnish on the Star Wars brand that a lot of us kind of recognize within the brand. Whereas something like House of the Dragon really needed only to outdo the absolute scum on the bottom of the barrel Game of Thrones season 8 kind of thing. And it's like the creators of that show, it's not like George Martin turned his back on the show and did something personally to like ruin it or to like, insult fans of it for being critical of it. It was just the two guys that show ran it were just out of their depth and had no idea and wanted to come out and make Star Wars, and then shocking, they're not making Star Wars anymore, so fuck them. So they're out of that. But that's going to be it for me, guys. I've gone an hour, probably a half hour too long for most of you guys, and I apologize. But when we get a hold of something we enjoy, we talk about it here. That's what we do. So I will see you guys in the next one. Likes, subs if you like what I do, want to see me do more stuff, that'd be great. I'd appreciate it. But more importantly, comment, because I really want the discussion on this show to happen. So maybe we do get something beyond season 2, which is greenlit and allegedly in pre-production. I think that'd be a King Z question if he was here, but he's not. So I have to defer to him the next time I get him. But until then, guys, I'll see you the next time.